This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Although George Bush's term in office is about to be over, he continues to criticize Iran. Bush received the Israeli Prime Minister at the White House, who said that Iran poses serious threats against peace and that the world must face the Iranian threat just like the United States is doing. Olmert, who might be visiting Washington for the last time as a Prime Minister because of the corruption charges against him, talked about important steps to deal with what he called the Iranian threat in a more effective way. While Israel continues to generate more power and support from its main ally, the United States, it seems that the best way for the Palestinians is to end divisions by reviving the Yemeni initiative, which has Arab support. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called for internal dialogue to end the divisions. All Palestinian factions, including Hamas, responded quickly and positively. Zuhair Saqallah reports from Gaza.
Only minutes after the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called for internal dialogue, Palestinian factions welcomed the initiative and expressed hope that the initiative will materialize. The division led the Palestinians to a dead end, and perhaps the call for dialogue will provide them with an exit.
Hamas welcomes the President's call for a comprehensive dialogue. We are willing to help in the success of any dialogue under any Arab framework to achieve Palestinian unity based on resuming internal negotiations without any preconditions.
This is not the first time that calls for dialogue and ending divisions have been made, but this time appears to be different. The living conditions in Gaza are extremely difficult, and Israel continues to strengthen the siege on Gaza while ignoring the suffering of the Palestinians and denying them the most basic of human rights.
The Islamic Jihad welcomes any step to bring back the unity of the Palestinians and end the state of division based on the commitment to the Palestinian rights and interests of our people regardless of any conditions.
We welcome the initiative of President Abbas because it calls for a comprehensive national dialogue. We believe that it is important that all Palestinian factions respond to this initiative, especially the factions that were part of the division.
It has been a year since the division between Palestinian brothers started, and it has been several months since the Yemeni initiative was made. It is time to revive the Yemeni initiative because it is the last opportunity to save the Palestinian situation. The reconciliation, which has been long in coming, now seems to be on the horizon. However, it will not achieve the Palestinian aspirations unless compromises are made on the ground, reconciliation planted in their hearts, and caution and carefulness are used in facing the enemy.
Palestinian groups are trying to forge a new path to guarantee their survival and independence. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is calling for reconciliation talks with Hamas. Crucially, he didn't explicitly say that Hamas must give up control of the Gaza Strip. Well, that's a condition he has insisted on in the past. Noor Auda now reports on Palestinian efforts to achieve their own unity.
Palestinians wake up to renewed hope that their year-long internal division could finally come to a peaceful end. The dailies read, President Abbas calls for national dialogue to achieve unity, and Hamas welcomes the invitation. On Wednesday, Mahmoud Abbas said the internal Palestinian rift was a source of weakness responsible national leaders must bridge to protect the Palestinian cause.
We will do our utmost to garner support for the efforts to reach reconciliation and unity in order to lift the siege on our people and end their suffering, protect the democratic Palestinian system and preserve our national cause.
On the street, ordinary Palestinians welcomed the initiative.
The call for unity is very good. We are all brothers and we should unite because we have the same enemy. It's Israel, supported by US and the West. That's why we should be united to achieve our rights.
Abbas called for dialogue to implement the Yemeni initiative, meeting a long-standing Hamas demand for holding dialogue before ending the Gaza takeover. Reached in late March, the initiative calls for an end to the Hamas takeover of Gaza, reforming civil and security institutions to ensure they're not biased towards any one faction, then holding early presidential and parliamentary elections. Abbas also condemned the Israeli siege of Gaza as a war crime, calling for Arab and international support to lift it, a demand sure to garner support among all Palestinians. National reconciliation will most likely complicate already tense Palestinian relations with the United States and Israel, who are expected to oppose Hamas's return to political partnership through reconciliation. But Palestinians say this is a price they're willing to pay. Ismail Haniyeh, the deposed prime minister, is expected to deliver a speech later on Thursday welcoming the Abbas initiative. And ordinary Palestinians are hoping this momentum will get them closer to the unity they have long demanded. Noorodi, Al Jazeera, Ramallah.
Well, speaking earlier on Al Jazeera, Palestinian negotiator Sahwa said reconciliation talks based on the Yemeni initiative signed in March are crucial.
President Abbas said he wants to see the Yemeni initiative implemented. The Yemeni initiative was unanimously adopted by the Arab summit held in Damascus last March. And now what we want to call upon our Arab brothers in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, the head of the Arab League this year, to see to it the beginning of the implementation of the Yemeni initiative. The Yemeni initiative and its implementations is the key to reconciliation. I hope that Hamas would use Abu Mazen's call as a ladder. We believe the Yemeni initiative is good for us, and Hamas must revoke the coup. We are one people, and it's time to put this coup behind us and to get the process of reconciliation by fully implementing the Yemeni initiative.
Sahwa there. Well, such efforts at reconciliation may have been advanced by speeches made in the United States at a pro-Israel lobby conference. Speaking in front of AIPAC, US presidential candidate Barack Obama made a series of statements about the future status of Jerusalem and conditions for peace between Palestinians and Israelis.
Israel's security is sacrosanct. It is non-negotiable. The Palestinians need a state. The Palestinians need a state that is contiguous and cohesive and that allows them to prosper. But any agreement with the Palestinian people must preserve Israel's identity as a Jewish state with secure, recognized, defensible borders. And Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided. Now, the long road to peace requires Palestinian partners committed to making this journey. We must isolate Hamas unless and until they renounce terrorism, recognize Israel's right to exist, and abide by past agreements. There is no room at the negotiating table for terrorist organizations.
Not surprisingly, those comments drew a swift reaction from all sides in the Palestinian territories.
Jerusalem is part of the 6 points that are subjects on the negotiations agenda. And the whole world knows that East Jerusalem, Arab Jerusalem and Holy Jerusalem was occupied in 1967, and we will not accept an independent Palestinian state without having Jerusalem as the capital of a Palestinian state. I believe the case is clear.
These statements assure that there is a total agreement between the two American parties, the Democratic and the Republican, on support for the Israeli occupation at the expense of the rights of Arabs and Palestinian interests. And these statements slash any hope of any change in the American foreign policy towards the Arab-Israeli conflict.
The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, the most powerful lobby group in the U.S., is holding its annual conference in Washington. American officials, including presidential candidates, are racing to win the heart of this lobby group.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert is in Washington, inciting against Iran, promising more insurgents against the Palestinians in an attempt to save his political career from corruption charges.
Before reaching this White House, one must first visit this lobby group and win its approval. This is what the American officials have been doing, and they will continue to do so as a way to win Israel over. AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, is holding its annual conference in Washington with more than 7,000 attendees, including activists, students, and researchers from all over the United States. The objective is to renew allegiance to Israel and learn what it wants, as well as to incite against those who are characterized by Israel as enemies. John McCain, the Republican presidential candidate, competed with the Israelis in inciting against Iran. He addressed the United Nations Security Council and the world, saying that his country and its allies will take unilateral measures against Iran if it continues its peaceful nuclear program, and called for imposing sanctions against Iran. The Democratic position is not much different from the Republican position in renewing their allegiance to Israel and their calls for the removal of what they refer to as Iranian threat, because Iran wants to have a peaceful nuclear energy program. Olmert, whose country has a secret nuclear arsenal, echoed the sharp American tone against Iran. The International Atomic Energy Agency does not interfere in Israel's nuclear program at all. Olmert reiterated what he considered as the world's duty, saying that countries should tell Iran in a clear manner, using harsh measures, that its quest to acquire nuclear technology will have devastating effects. Olmert, along with Bush, will put the last touches on the American military aid to Israel as a way to strengthen its military arsenal. At the same time, Olmert is trying to deal with the corruption charges against him. He wants to distract attention from his financial scandals by focusing on Iran and the Palestinian-Israeli peace track. He is promising the Palestinians with illusions, which he called a historic achievement that will be crowned with a peace agreement before the end of this year, while giving the green light to the policy of settlements, incursions, and daily killings of Palestinians. AIPAC, which was formed in the early 1950s, will not protect Olmert's office, but according to political analysts, will help American presidential candidates reach the White House. Despite the recent announcement for the return of an electrical charge in the lines of negotiation between Syria and Israel via Turkey, several political fronts in Israel expressed caution regarding the possible results that such talks could lead to. This political position was also shared by several Israeli media outlets. Meanwhile, some Israeli media outlets have examined the history of negotiations between Syria and Israel, a history that is full of shortcomings at all levels. This has prompted some to wonder whether this latest round of negotiations will have a better chance of succeeding than previous ones. This is what the Israeli Channel 2 tried to answer in the following report.
More than 40 years have passed and Israel is still in the Golan Heights, a period that includes 34 years of calm and 17 years of interrupted negotiations. Each time a round of negotiations was launched, it was destined to collapse, and the reason depends on who you ask, the Syrians or the Israelis. The problem goes back in the time to the Madrid conference, during which the Syrians described Yitzhak Shamir as a terrorist. This was followed by yet another round of talks in Washington, where Syria called for the return of the Golan Heights, and the Israelis responded by hitting glass with a spoon so as not to hear.
We have reached the conclusion that Syria is not interested in a peaceful settlement with Israel, a settlement in which Syria offers concessions. It seems that the late President, Hafiz al-Assad, was not able to come to an agreement with Israel.
Shamir has lost the elections and was succeeded by Rabin, who announced to the Americans that he was willing to withdraw from the Golan. Without authorization, the Americans informed the Syrians negotiations of Rabin's intention, which has become known as Rabin's deposit. Despite the lengthy and serious talks that followed Rabin's declaration, the negotiations collapsed.
At the time, a meeting was held between Israeli Chief of Staff Shahak and the Syrian Acting Chief of Staff Shehabi. While we believe that the meeting was a success, the late Syrian President Hafez al-Assad was not too enthusiastic about it. Prime Minister at the time, Ishaq Shamir, came to a conclusion that al-Assad was not serious about the negotiations and suspended the talks.
Rabin planned to renew talks with Syria, but he was assassinated before he could do so. Shimon Peres, Rabin's successor, tried to proceed with the negotiations, but failed to reach a deal.
The negotiations stopped after deadly terrorist acts were launched by the Palestinians in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. In addition, more attacks were launched in southern Lebanon. This was followed by Operation Clusters of Anger. Then the Israeli elections came. All of these events helped to sabotage the negotiations.
Peres lost and was succeeded by Netanyahu, who opposed the withdrawal from the Golan. However, he sent Lauderer to negotiate with al-Assad about the details of the withdrawal. Then a question was raised about the depth of the withdrawal, in which a disagreement ensued, prompting Netanyahu to suspend the negotiations.
Netanyahu insisted on staying in the entire Golan Heights from the north to the area of Hemma. Thus, the Syrians practically withdrew from the negotiations.
Netanyahu left and was succeeded by Barak, and then came a final serious attempt to renew talks between Syria and Israel. The Israelis and the Syrians engaged in direct negotiations in Shepherdstown, where the two sides talked about everything. However, the negotiations eventually collapsed.
Al-Assad refused the proposal. In fact, Al-Assad was totally responsible for the collapse of the negotiations.
In another attempt, Clinton asked to meet al-Assad. Both leaders met in Geneva, and 4 minutes later, al-Assad spoiled the meeting.
In March 2000, Clinton presented al-Assad with a map that I had drawn up. Al-Assad could have taken advantage of this map, which calls for the withdrawal from the Golan up to the June 4th border line. Because the map was out of scale, al-Assad rejected the proposal.
With this, Clinton understood that there was no one to talk to, and al-Assad Sr. had only one thing in mind, which was to bring his son to take his place. Thus, the negotiations, once again, were frozen.
مدينة الطارمية التي تقع في الأطراف الشمالية للعاصمة العراقية بغداد أصبحت.
Stability and security have returned to the city of Tarmiya, north of the Iraqi capital of Baghdad. This came after Sahwa, or the Awakening Council, liberated the city from the lengthy period of al-Qaeda control. Abu Dhabi TV visited the city. It was the first Arabic satellite channel to enter Tarmiya after the battles between the Sahwa and al-Qaeda ended.
مرورا بمثلث الموت الذي يصل سامراء والفلوجة وديالى.
The city Tarmiya begins past the so-called Triangle of Death, which connects Samarra, Fallujah and Diyala. It lies 50 kilometers north of Baghdad, and until very recently was a major hotspot when it was under al-Qaeda's control. Abu Dhabi TV was the first Arab channel to enter this area. Security and stability have returned to Tarmiya after Sahwa cleansed the city from armed groups.
والله هاي أول قناة فضائية تدخل لنا وإحنا فرحانين جدا بوجودكم اليوم ويانا.
This is the first satellite station to come in. We are very happy with your visit, and we hope this visit to Tarmiya is not the last, God willing. The Sahwa has worked hard to regain control of all the areas in Tarmiya. We kicked out the al-Qaeda cells which were gathered and headquartered in the city. Tarmiya is close to the Diyala province, through the Dijla River, which served as their passageway. When al-Qaeda would get surrounded in Diyala, they would pass into Tarmiya.
كان المعبر مالتهم من منطقة ديالى يتحاصرون التنظيم القاعدة بديالى يعبرون للطارمية.
الصحوة التي خاضت معارك.
The Sahwa led fierce battles and tightened the grip around armed factions. The Iraqi army and the U.S. forces were able to move freely after a long period when simply passing through the city was a fatal risk.
Well, I can't comment. I was not here.
I can't comment because I was not here before the Sahwa arrived. But I can see now that the area is safe and business is back to normal. The situation is stable and the children are happy.
Security has returned and the streets of Tarmiya and Mushahada are calm. The tribal elders agreed to start the rebuilding campaign and to pave the way for the return of families who were forced to migrate.
Tarmiya is in good condition. All the tribes and the employees can walk safely. The police can walk around and the Iraqi army is present, and so is Sahwa. Tarmiya is safe, but there are still dormant cells. God willing, we will drive them out and Tarmiya will be completely free. The city is one of Baghdad's most important areas.
The citizens of Baghdad depend on this tribal city for their agricultural needs. Hence, the city's security and economic development give it weight to participate in the next elections. Tarmiya is the oldest suburb in Iraq. Until recently, only death and destruction passed through it. But now that calm has returned, the residents are determined to plant hope for a complete, not partial, life. Duha al-Haddad for Al-Madar, Abu Dhabi TV, Tarmiya, north of Baghdad.
ضحى الحداد لبرنامج المدار قناة أبو ظبي من منطقة طارمية شمال بغداد.
The Iraqi Prime Minister's office said that the United Arab Emirates will send an ambassador to Baghdad next week. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates Foreign Minister, Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, arrived to the Iraqi capital this morning.
This is the first visit by a foreign minister from the Gulf. Since Iraq was occupied 5 years ago, although Washington has intensified its efforts to persuade Arab countries to reopen their embassies in Iraq.
إلى بلد ما زالت جراحه نازفة وصل وزير الخارجية الإماراتي قد لا يغير وصول عبد الله بن زايد آل نهيان.
The United Arab Emirates Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan has arrived to our country with unhealed wounds. His arrival may not have much of an effect on the daily violence in Iraq, which has been witnessing a lack of security and ethnic and religious strife since it was occupied 5 years ago. However, the first visit by a foreign minister from the Gulf to Iraq can only help the Iraqi government and will ease the political burdens on the United States, which has been exerting intensive efforts to persuade Arab countries and Iraq's neighbors in particular to re-establish their economic and political ties with Iraq by opening their embassies there and cancelling Iraq's debts. The United Arab Emirates has withdrawn its diplomats from Iraq after one of them was kidnapped. At the time, the kidnappers demanded that the Emirates embassy be closed down before the diplomat could be released. During 5 years of occupation, which were overshadowed by fear, hesitation, and perhaps indifference, the Arab countries were not sure whether to send their diplomats to Iraq or wait longer due to the occupation and the deteriorating situation. And because they were not enthusiastic to deal with an Iraqi government that was accused of encouraging sectarianism. Some believe that the new Arab position is in response to the increasing Iranian influence in Iraq, because the absence of an effective Arab diplomatic role will serve Iran and create an opportunity for it. In addition, the return of Arab diplomats to Iraq can serve Bush's administration, which can say then that the situation in Iraq has improved at both the diplomatic and security levels.
إنها تترك السلطة والعراق أفضل حالا دبلوماسيا وأمنيا.
With one objective in mind, which is to restore security and stability, thus bring life back to Iraq, the Iraqi National Armed Forces have carried out over the past year countless military operations around the country. The following report by Richard Zakir sheds light on the most prominent military operations carried out by the Iraqi National Armed Forces over the past year.
عملية السلام أم الربيعين.
Peace Operation, Operation Mother of the Two Springs, Operation Lion's Roar, the Charge of the Knights, Operation Iron Harvest, and the Phantom Vulture are different names to different offensives carried out by the Iraqi National Armed Forces over the past year. Despite the different names, these offensives share the same objective, which is to restore security and stability in the country. They were also intended to strengthen the social mosaic of Iraqi society, as mandated by the National Reconciliation Initiative. Through these military operations, the Iraqi government is trying to reactivate its political process and promote democracy, a move that will help Iraq start the reconstruction efforts towards a development and economic viability, which will help bring life back to normal. These military operations, which have been carried out by the brave men of the Iraqi armed forces, were launched in central Baghdad under the context of the Rules of Law Security Plan and quickly extended to Iraqi border areas in the north and the south. These military operations, which have shown the magnitude of public support of the Iraqi armed forces, include the following. Peace operation was launched to restore calm, security and stability in Sadr city. The purpose of the offensive was to counter insurgency and compensate those who suffered losses. The military intervention in Sadr city also showed the importance of political understanding between the government and the Sadr faction, especially after the two sides signed a ceasefire agreement, ending a bloody stage of fearless clashes between the government-backed forces and Al-Mahdi army militias, clashes that have caused massive property damage in Sadr city and also inflicted a high casualty toll on both sides. Operation Mother of Two Springs, which is being carried out by the Iraqi army, intends to cleanse the province of Ninawa from Al-Qaeda terrorist organization. This news comes after Al-Qaeda planted death, destruction and terror in the province of Ninawa, especially in the city of Mosul. Unlike before the offensive, the Iraqi Air Force can now fly its military planes freely over the entire province. From the sophisticated military operation room in Mosul and under the direct command of the Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, the brave men of the Iraqi armed forces have scored yet another victory, especially with the arrest of Al-Qaeda emir in Mosul, Abdul Khaliq Sabawi, and hundreds of his terrorist fighters. The arrest of Sabawi was confirmed by the Deputy Interior Minister for Security and Intelligence, Major General Hussein al-Kamal. While the military operations in the province of Ninawa were being carried out, the Iraqi security forces launched a wide-scale offensive in hotspot areas along the Syrian borders in pursuit of Al-Qaeda armed fighters who fled the city and headed towards Syria. Syria, which accounts for 90% of the total number of terrorists infiltrating into Iraq, must take responsible actions and control its borders. In addition, the Iraqi National Armed Forces launched offensive in southern Iraq, including the city of Basra, which is Iraq's only exit to the sea and its port of trade with the world. Operation Salat al-Fursan, Charge of the Knights, was launched to liberate Basra and protect all natural resources in the south from looting by the militias, which tried to seize control of Iraq's natural gas and oil. The Charge of the Knights operation also helped restrain the growing regional influence in Iraq, especially after a leading regional country was accused of stealing oil from southern Iraq. The Iraqi forces have also launched Operation Iron Harvest in and around the Iraqi capital, including the provinces of Diyala and Salah ad-Din. Through Operation Iron Harvest, which came to strengthen the Rules of Law Security Plan in Baghdad, the Iraqi army discovered and destroyed dozens of weapon storing facilities. In addition, the Iraqi forces killed hundreds of insurgents and arrested hundreds of others in the offensive. At the beginning of the year, the Iraqi armed forces launched Operation Phantom Vulture in the area of Arab Jibur. The purpose of the offensive was to liberate the province from Al-Qaeda armed fighters, who we hope will not find a safe haven in our beloved country, God willing. These military operations, including those that have been announced and those to be announced later, have one objective, which is to restore peace, security and stability in the country. And by all means, they were not executed out of vengeance. And the future, just like history, will be the living proof of that.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.